Hi Elise, how's it going? I'm not sure if you know, but you are not currently connected to the audio. Just making that aware for you. Hi Alina, how's it going? All right. So, let's get started with our recommended author and book of the day. So, this is our author who wrote the novel Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind. His name is Yuval Noah Harari. So, let's see. Alina, can you please read the first two paragraphs up until world? Sorry, Alina, if you don't mind reading the first two paragraphs until world. No? Okay, Elise, if you don't mind reading the first two paragraphs up until world. Sorry, Elise, can you hear me?
Wait, where's the world?
Second paragraph. Structure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Born in 1976, Harari specializes in world history, macro historical trends, and the intersection of history with technology and philosophy. He gained international recognition for his best-selling books that explore the past, present, and future of humanity. Harari's books focus on broad, thought-provoking questions about human civilization, consciousness, artificial intelligence, and the future of our species. His writing often combines history, philosophy, and science to explore how humans create meaning and structure in the world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elise. Lynn, can you please read these other two paragraphs, the last two paragraphs for us?
Harari's work widely praised for its ability to distill complex historical and philosophical ideas into accessible narratives. He has been invited to speak at major global forums, including the World Economic Forum, and his books are read by world leaders, business executives, and intellectuals. His ideas often spark debate, particularly his discussions on AI, the role of religion, and the ethical implication of biotechnology. He argues that humanity is moving towards a future where data and artificial intelligence will reshape not just economies but human identity itself.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's get to know his work, which is titled Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind. So let's get to know this summary with along with some uh, significant themes that and history that was discussed. Um, so, Alina, I'm not sure if you have access to your mic yet, but I was wondering if you're able to read up until the second point of the agricultural revolution.
From the title,
Yes.
book Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind, extended summary. Sapiens is a sweeping exploration of the history of Homo sapiens, from our origins as insignificant primates to becoming the most dominant species on Earth. Harari divides human history into three major revolutions that shaped our societies. The cognitive revolution, about 70,000 years ago. This period saw the emergence of complex language and abstract thinking, which allowed Homo sapiens to cooperate in large groups, create myths, and form collective belief systems. Unlike other human species, such as Neanderthals, sapiens were able to adapt more efficiently by sharing innovation in forming flexible social structures. The agricultural revolution, about 10,000 years ago, the shift from hunter-gatherer lifestyles to settled farming communities fundamentally changed society. While agriculture provided food surpluses and enabled civilizations to grow, Harari argues that it also led to social hierarchies, disease, and labor exploitation, making life harder for many individuals despite the overall success of the species.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, Lynn, if you don't mind finishing up the rest of the slide for us.
Is it starting from throughout the book?
Starting from the scientific revolution.
The scientific revolution. The development of modern science and capitalism accelerated human progress, leading to technological advancements, industrialization, and global connectivity. Harari highlights how humans moved from believing in religious and mythical explanations to trusting empirical science and data. He also discusses the rise of capitalism, consumerism, and technology developments that are shaping the future of our species. Throughout the book, Harari questions traditional narratives and presents thought-provoking arguments about religion, economics, and human happiness. He explores how abstract concepts like money, laws, and cooperatives exist only because people collectively believe in them. By the end, Harari raises ethical and philosophical questions about where humanity is heading, especially with developments in biotechnology and artificial intelligence. Sapiens is both a historical lesson and a deep reflection on what it means to be human. It challenges readers to reconsider how societies function and what a future may hold for Homo sapiens as we continue to evolve.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's get to know our task. So one thing we understood is that the author tackles a lot of historic landmark, a lot of historic moments, events that really shaped society and humanity as a whole. So the prompt I'm going to ask you guys, if one major historical event had happened differently, such as the agricultural revolution never occurring or the internet being invented in the 18th century, how might human history have changed? So what I would like you guys to do is write a short story or essay exploring alternative timeline. Does anyone have any questions regarding this? No? All right then, so I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes to complete, and then we will move on. I'll be here if you have any questions at all. You guys have 3 more minutes left to complete this task, and then we will start taking it up. All right, time is up. Please submit the work that you have done so far, or at least try to finalize your sentences. I am going to get the document prepared and get started with the editing. So, Alina, I see that you submitted first. So let's take a look. So, Alina, you said if the agricultural revolution had never happened, human societies would likely have remained small nomadic groups reliant on hunting and gathering. So, if we're going to give an essay based on a point of view, or not necessarily an opinion, but of, you know, a perspective, we want to be certain in our vocabulary, even if might not be 100% true and it's not factual. We at least want to sound as if we are convinced that this would be happening. So avoid using words like would likely. So you could say human societies have, if the agricultural revolution had never happened, human societies would have resulted in remaining small or maybe instead of result, I would have lacked the necessary changes to go beyond a small nomadic beyond small nomadic groups reliant on hunting and gathering. This would slow population. And then saying this, we can say is as a result, there would be a decrease in the rate of population growth. Technological development and the rise of complex civilizations. Without settled agriculture, humans wouldn't have built cities, developed writing, or created large-scale empires that shape world history. Progress would have been limited to the pace of smaller localized communities, and the interconnected global world we know today would cease to, I would say, would cease to exist. And then as for adding a little bit more, I really liked how you gave this example about having built cities, developed writing. Talk a little bit more on each point. For example, wouldn't have built cities. What is the benefits of having a city, right? Talk about what would be a lack of writing, right? What are the consequences of undeveloped writing? Large-scale empires. Again, what does that do for society? Right? Maybe it talks about order, safety, stuff like that. So I would just dive in a little bit deeper into that. But overall, majority of what I would have wanted you to fix is just wording. For example, instead of saying this, expand on it. Instead of saying may have never formed, be more clear and firm in your point. And same idea for the beginning. Instead of saying would likely, add what I have given you or something similar to. Any questions, Lena? All right. So, Elise, let's take a look at yours. So, Elise, you said if the internet would have never been invented, just to give you another way of saying this, you could say without the creation of the internet, comma, and then you can expand all effects of it I know what you're trying to say here, but I think there's a better way you could say it. If the internet would have never been invented, the lasting results that shaped the world would completely change. I'm assuming that's what you're trying to say in that second part. Is that the same idea that you're trying to give out, Elise?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. The whole world would be vastly different from how it is today. Take communication for an example. The internet provides the fastest communication possible. Um, Still saying possible. Maybe that is accessible. That is accessible to it. With messages sent from across the world facing with messages sent from across the world racing to the receiver on the other end of the thousands of miles long line in mere seconds. This I would take all this out. I would just say with messages sent from across the world racing in mere seconds. Humans have thrived in this availability of communication, and by keeping in touch and circulating ideas, the innovation and creative spirit has since then thrived. However, without communicating, humans would struggle to truly connect with each other unless they're in the same room. Pushing a button and writing some text that one wishes to send can be instead of saying can be, we would say is far simpler and more creative, more effective. I would find a synonym that captures the essence of effective yet simple. Or we could just say is effective yet simple. I think it just flows a little bit better than the structure you have here. But I feel like there would be a better term that encaptures this idea here. Thus, the billions of people that use the internet every day, week, month, and year are thankful for this wondrous and potentially even dangerous innovation. Instead of saying potentially even dangerous, I think a better term here could just be risky. All right, that's all the feedback I have for you, Elise. Any questions?
No, thank you.
All right, so let's move on. We'll leave our quote of the day last. What I have here is a reading task that we're going to do some multiple choice and another writing task along with it. So we're just going to take turns. Alina, if you don't mind reading the first paragraph for us.
In the early 19th century, a series of artistic and philosophical movements began to reshape Europe. Among them, Romanticism arose as a reaction against the strictures of Enlightenment thinking and the Industrial Revolution. Romantic thinkers and writers championed emotion, individualism, and nature, rejecting the mechanical view of the world in favor of intuition and the sublime. Figures like William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Lord Byron became synonymous with this shift in artistic and intellectual thought.
Awesome, thank you so much. Elise, can you please read the second paragraph for us?
Romantics sought to elevate the imagination above reason, believing that true insight could not be found through rationality alone. For them, nature was not merely a backdrop to human existence, but a powerful force that could mirror the deepest currents of human emotion. Wordsworth's poetry, for instance, often draws on the beauty and power of nature to explore complex inner experiences. Similarly, Coleridge's works delve into the human psyche, questioning the boundaries between reality and the imagination.
Awesome. And Lynn, can you please read the last paragraph for us?
Yeah, this emphasis on emotion and individualism had its critics. Many argued that the Romantic movement was too idealistic disconnected from the realities of everyday life. Some contended that the focus on personal emotion led to an abandonment of social responsibility and practical concerns. Still, despite these criticisms, Romanticism laid the groundwork for later movements, including Symbolism and Modernism, which would further challenge traditional boundaries in art and literature.
Awesome. So, this passage is something that you're going to be typically seeing from the SAT. And then I have a bunch of multiple choice questions for you to answer. So, if you guys don't mind, please answering questions 1 through 4. We have more in the following slide. But for now, just complete 1 through 4. I'm going to give you around 2 to 3 minutes before we move on to the next slide. All right. So, you may get started. All right, so time is up. Please start submitting your responses. I am going to move on to the next slide in 3, 2, 1. So please complete the next following multiple choice. I'm going to give you around 2 to 3 minutes to complete. All right, one more minute. Start finalizing the responses that you can do, and then we'll move on to the last multiple choice question. All right. So this is the last multiple choice. And then before we do the long answer question, we will take up the responses. So quickly just complete the final multiple choice question in a minute, and then we'll move on and take it up. All right, time is up. Please submit the final response for the multiple choice that you see here. I'm going to move to the next slide in 3, 2, 1. So for questions 1 through 4, it is C, B, B, A. As for the 5 through 8, it is C, C, B, C. And then 9 and 10 is B, B. Does anyone have any questions? No? All right, then. So let's move on to the long answer question that we see here. So what I would like you guys to do is create an essay and discuss how the passage characterizes Romanticism and its key ideas. We've discussed briefly Romanticism in our earlier sessions. So what I would like you guys to do is explain the movement's emphasis on emotion, nature, individualism, and explore the criticism it faced. How did Romanticism contribute to the development of later artistic movements, according to the passage? So, of course, because you're writing an essay in relation to the passage, what I would like you guys to do is support your answer with specific details from the text. Try your best to do as much, support it with as much as you can. That doesn't mean, of course, copy and pasting the entire essay, but the entire passage, but be wise with what you choose to support with. Now, does anyone have any questions about the long answer question? No? All right, so I'm going to give you guys around 10 minutes to complete, and then we will take it up again into the document, and then we'll move on to our next practice. All right, so you guys may get started. You have 1 more minute left. I would take this time to finalize your responses, finish up what you can do in the next following minute. I am going to stop sharing, however, and get the document shared for us to edit on. So, Alina, I'm assuming this is your final product, right? You're not going to add any more? All right. So then, Alina, let's take a look at what you said. You said Romanticism was a movement that prioritized emotion, individualism, and a deep connection to nature, positioning these elements above reason and rational thought. Okay. Um, Romanticism, such as William Wordsworth, an author, and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, a poet. So, an author. Poet. Viewed nature not as a setting, but as a strong force that mirrored human emotions and inner experiences. They believe that true understanding cannot be achieved only through rationality, but through intuition and imagination. Great. Despite its emphasis on personal emotion in the subline, the movement faced criticism for being overly idealistic and disconnected from the real world. They believe that true understanding cannot be achieved only through rationality, but through intuition and imagination. I would say, but through some combination. Despite its emphasis on personal emotion and the subline condition, the movement faced criticism from being overly idealistic and disconnected from the real world, with some arguing that it neglected social responsibility. However, Romanticism focused on breaking traditional boundaries by contributing to later artistic movements like symbolism and modernism. Awesome. So also in the beginning, Alina, I see that you're talking about was a movement that practiced emotion, individualism, and deep connection to nature. Now, you mentioned nature and you do mention emotion, but I think there is a lack of discussing how, or at least a lack of clear understanding on how it prioritized individualism. I'm not seeing a section here where you discuss about its contribution to individualism. So if that's the case, you either take that out or you add another sentence with supporting text to discuss why it brings or prioritizes individualism. All right. Other than that, everything else looks great. Any questions, Alina? No? All right. So, Elise, let's take a look at yours. I'm assuming what you have here is your final product, right? So, Elise, you said the Romans had a purpose to elevate. So careful with the spelling. The to elevate the imagination above reason to help others and readers attain true insight. They sought to shatter the rational bounds, holding us as humans together and allowing our imaginations to. They sought to shatter the.
I think you forgot the first bit before that, like the introduction.
Did I? Oh, sorry about that. In this objective essay featuring the analytical perspective of Romanticism, this passage shows the history of Romantics when it all started and the true reason behind. Instead of all this, can you clarify what do you mean by all this? What do you mean by all this?
Oh, like why they were writing books or like focusing on this topic.
Okay, so then the true reason behind, um, we could say its contributions. How do you feel about that? The Romantics.
That's okay. Thank
Yep, yeah, no problem. Okay, let's go back. They sought to shatter the rational bounds, holding. Instead of saying this, we're gonna use that word, the bound. That's a great word, but we're gonna just switch up its form. We're gonna say they shadow the rational. They sought to shadow the rationale, bounding humans together. Um, and allow our imaginations to run free, prospering innovation and creativity. Awesome. So we just added some commas and took some stuff out there. The Romantics also avoid using the word also. We can say here, it is noted that the Romantics often emphasize the importance and power of nature and preaches it as more than a mere backdrop for the growth of humanity. I would expand this a little bit more on this and discuss maybe your thought on it, adding just a little bit more depth and analysis towards that point that you made. All right. Now, this is a great job, but what I would want you guys to get encouraged to do is whenever you are wanting to add supporting evidence from the passage, I would recommend you guys to start getting used to this idea of introducing when you're using the passage as reference. For example, when you want to say that in an essay, you could say, according to the passage, it says XYZ. According to the author, it says XYZ. Now, you have used it, but I would encourage it a little bit more, just to make it clear that you make of your point, and then the difference between your point and the what the author is saying. All right. Um, but that's just a general comment. Does anyone have any questions? No? All right, so let's move on to the quote of the day. So here I have this quote by Albert Einstein. Lynn, can you please read this quote for us?
Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Albert Einstein.
Oh, so sorry. I thought I was speaking. Well, I was speaking, but I didn't realize that my mic was off. Lynn, sorry, I was asking you the question. Um, when you read this quote, what were your initial understandings? How did you understand it? Um, and what do you think Albert Einstein's perspective was?
I think his perspective is like it's not about what you learn in the end, but the process that got you there.
Absolutely. Um, anything else? Does anyone want to add more on that? Do they have a different idea of what Albert Einstein is trying to say here? Elise, any thoughts?
Like your brain needs to be able to make and find its own connections. So no matter how many facts you learn, if your brain can't think, it won't help you grow. But if your mind can think and make connections on its own, then your knowledge can grow. That's like education.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so yeah, well, what Lynn said and what Elise said, those are both correct. The process of getting there and understanding a fact is way more important than the fact itself. And why is that? Because that leads to what Elise said, is that we're not learning just simple facts. We have to actually critically think, critically analyze, not only just the answer itself, but how do we come up with that conclusion? So those are certain perspectives I think that Albert Einstein is trying to say here. So what I want you guys to do is say, do you agree or disagree with Einstein's perspective on education? Write an essay in which you analyze his claim. Consider the role of memorization, problem solving, creativity, and critical thinking in modern education. You guys deal with all these subcategories of understanding within your own school, within our sessions. So, what I want you to do is just use specific examples from your personal experience, history, to support your argument whether you agree with this perspective or not. All right. So, does anyone have any questions regarding this task? No? All right, then. So, I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes to complete and then we will move on. You may get started. 2 more minutes left. What I would recommend is taking this time to finalize your sentences, edit what you can, and then start getting ready for the editing process. But you still have 2 more minutes. All right, time is up. I am gonna stop sharing and getting the document ready. Just give me 1 second. All right, Lise, let's take a look at yours. So, in terms of here, just careful with the spelling. So, at least you said according to Einstein, the most famous scientist who made a pretty big mark. Pretty big. It's not the best term to use together. I would either say made a big mark or made a significant discovery, made us there's many ways to go about it. We'll just say made a big mark. Or well, maybe significant would be a better term to use here. In history to his own name, education is more about I would just add a comma here and take this out. Education is I would take this out and maybe say prioritizes teaching your mind to critically think. And honing cognitive abilities. Take this out as well. You said, in my perspective, I do agree with this claim, yet I have more to add on for it. Adding a phrase like this, where you're going to discuss more points further on, I would rephrase this. And Manchester Phrasebook is a great tool to help you come up with sentences similar to this. So you could say, in my perspective, I do agree with this claim. Um, um, in which will be stated in detail in the next section. We're gonna add that more so in the beginning, then say it like this. Without any facts, how does one's mind make any connection? There is nothing to think about. A lack of fact will result in nothing to think about. Instead, I believe that education is partially what Einstein claims. Um, and memorizing facts. What do you mean? So our minds can stem from?
I meant it's from, not form.
Yeah, but what do you mean by stem from?
Like stem from the facts so they can make their own connections.
Um, I would take this out. And memorizing facts, so our minds can memorize information and develop connections from that starting point. I would phrase it in that way rather than this. All right, so here at least I would be a little bit just careful with the word flow. I would reread this. So when you do finish a paragraph such as this, it's always best to reread it out loud and see what you would find better or necessary to change in order to make sure that everything sounds a little bit more coherent and that your point is clear. All right. Any questions? No?
You're just saying to read the writing out loud, so to make sure everything's clear and good.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, because a lot of the mistakes you made are easily noticeable, especially if you do read it out loud. That's something you'll be able to pick up even on your own. All right. So, Lynn, let's take a look at yours. So Lynn, you said, I agree with Einstein's perspective on education. In his quote, means that the knowledge you gain is not as important as how you got there. I would say as the training. Just to elevate. Instead of saying how you got there, you can say it how as important as the training. For example, learning how to add and subtract is not important for doctors, but it's the process that helped them develop analytical skills. Even by gaining knowledge that doesn't immediately apply to you, you can use the tricks in your learning process and apply it to subjects that are relevant towards you. Awesome, that is correct. When someone understands something at its best, we don't need the apostrophe S, it is not through memorization, but the actual understanding to teach someone else. Learning new things gives us a mountain to climb and lesson on how to conquer it. Um, so I just wanted to add this real quick, Lynn. It says, learning new things gives us a mountain to climb, and through perseverance, we build life lessons on how to conquer it. All right, awesome. This is a great paragraph. Very minimal mistakes. And great job with providing the quote, as well as the relevance to day-to-day knowledge. So this is great. Any questions regarding the feedback I have for you, Lynn?
No.
All right. So, Alina, let's take a look at yours. So, Alina, you said, I agree with Albert Einstein's perspective that education should focus on developing the mind's ability to think critically rather than just memorizing facts. Great. While memorization is still important, I would get rid of still. While memorization is important, especially for foundational knowledge, true learning goes beyond rote recall. And just to help people understand, what does rote mean, Alina? For those who are not familiar with this term. Any ideas, Alina, of what rote means? So we can, for those who are not familiar, we can understand it. As you're finding the definition, we'll just leave a question mark for now here. In modern education, problem solving and creativity play a key role in helping students apply their knowledge to real-world situations. For example, in STEM fields, students are encouraged to not only memorize formulas, but also to use them creatively to solve complex problems. Awesome. Similarly, in the arts, creativity fosters innovation and the ability to think outside the box. Great. Education should aim I would say, so this thing should aim is there to empower students to think critically, solve problems, and innovate rather than simply absorb information. For example, in Brave New World, the use of hypnopedia or sleep teaching reflects the dangers of relying solely on memorization. A society of individuals who lacked independent thought is formed. This was very thrown in. We would still need some kind of concluding sentence, just so we're wrapping up the findings and the um, in the understanding of why he chose to give this support specifically into your work. So concluding sentence would be helpful here. Okay. Any questions, Alina? No? All right. So we only have a minute left. So I'm just going to quickly explain the homework now. For the homework, what I want you guys to do is a vocab list that I'll be attaching to the slide, and then there'll just be some fill in the blank practice that you'll have there, and then writing a paragraph using the vocab list there.